Assassin's Creed 2, a sequel worthy of carrying the torch that the first game ignited. Not only is it a title that improved upon the formula of the original, but one that really established the series as a proper franchise in its own right. With its signature aesthetic and stealth mechanics, this series effectively merged interesting gameplay with storytelling rooted in real-world history. So today, we're going to explore exactly why this game still tops some of the best Assassin's Creed ranking lists, and whether it's still worth playing. Initially, I wasn't all that impressed, but after spending a decent amount of time with the game, I admit the main theme definitely does bring back some fond memories. Even though when I first played this game years ago, I never actually got the chance to finish it.
It is a good life we lead,
but this theme definitely still left an impression. I think there's really one key track that stands out: Ezio's family theme. For me, the beauty of the track is how the vocalizations meld so effortlessly with the instruments, creating a really cohesive and memorable anthem. And the track itself actually just works really well with the whole Renaissance setting of the game. Overall though, I wouldn't list it as my favourite soundtrack out there. It's definitely memorable enough to evoke the necessary emotions, but for me personally, it's not a mainstay in my playlist. Now, the voice work in this game is actually really good.
Is it? It's been over 10 years since I watched my father and brothers die.
Even though this is something of a revenge story and there are emotional moments, it's not really what this whole experience is about.
He's lying!
And there aren't actually a lot of lines, but the voice acting really helps to flesh out each character.
Is it true? They say you killed the Doge.
I was trying to save him, Leonardo.
Everyone feels like they have their own unique personality and identity.
Aha! Oh, my darling. Thank God you're all right. Ezio, meet Bianca. Bianca, Ezio.
Like, they're almost all treated like cameos, and they really don't stick around for very long, but to me they all feel pretty interesting.
You think you can threaten me? I'll give you nothing! You want my children? Take them! I have the instrument to make more!
Oh, and the sound design overall is really good as well. It all does a great job of indicating exactly what's happening whilst helping to add or relieve tension where necessary.
Leave me alone!
And that signature assassination sound effect is just peak Assassin's Creed. Graphically, AC2 is definitely a product of its time, but in a good way. I mean, no, the game won't have photorealistic looks that stand up to today's AAA expectations, but the artistic flair, digital style, and the detailed architecture really brings the world to life. The character models can appear blocky at times if you pay close attention, but generally look great and have aged surprisingly well. I think a big part of that is owed to the art style, to be fair, because it retains much of that visual appeal even today. Like, the facial animation is a key highlight, with great voice work syncing up exceptionally well and all of it coming together to deliver a very engaging story experience.
And this new Templar Doge is a bigger culo than the last. Never mind that he never leaves the palazzo.
Yes, except for tonight.
I mean, keeping in mind this game is 16 years old now, the animation is still really impressive and each character still looks unique.
Had you sent us quality weapons instead of this garbage you Venetians call armament?
We put our faith in your family and you repay us with inaction and incompetence? Then when asked to account for your failures, you make excuses and insult us? How do you expect me to respond?
I don't know.
As mentioned, the art style does a lot of heavy lifting and it is still gorgeous, and the detail around the world also benefiting from that even today. It's also really impressive how many assets have been created, especially the buildings, and when you consider how large each explorable level is. The signature Assassin's Creed logo and art style has naturally been carried over from the first game, but it's all been updated to match the new Renaissance era setting along with this new white and maroon theme. It's also surprisingly clear how things are presented. The merging of Renaissance Italy spliced in with the DNA strand style menu and the whole techie nature of the Animus has been blended together so effortlessly. Now, the gameplay. To start off, the controls are still pretty subpar, especially the movement, which is a core part of this series. The experience does feel a lot more manageable on controller than keyboard and mouse, but they're still pretty rough. Similar to the first game, some of it just doesn't feel very well done, but I mean, it is still playable. The thing is, the camera will change positions as you move, obviously intending to nullify the issue, but it often ends up exacerbating things further. Like, I did still end up finishing the game, but I just think the controls have always been one of the key weaknesses in this whole franchise. Having said that, certain aspects of it do feel a bit more refined and updated. Like the combat, for example. It definitely feels improved and smoother, like you can execute disarms and counters with much more ease. And the climbing also feels much more natural. The devs not making the NPC walk speed match the players is a pet peeve though. Now, speaking of weaknesses, the other issue that I found with this game is how Ubisoft still requires you to log into their own launcher even when you own it on Steam. And it seems it needs to happen every time you play the game. This whole process is just unnecessarily intrusive and adds unneeded friction. If it at least worked, it wouldn't even be so bad, but because the servers are gone, the whole cloud saving piece doesn't work either. And on top of all of that, something that I only found out recently is that there's also some DLC that is tied to the linking of your account with the Ubisoft application. And because you can't link it anymore, it currently looks to be unavailable for anyone that doesn't already have it. Now, back to the actual gameplay. As always, it wouldn't be an Ubisoft title without the side content. There's a heap of activities to complete, including races, beat-up missions, courier assignments, and assassination contracts. There's also a heap of feathers, paintings, or weapons to collect, some statues that you can find, and even Altair's original armor. It does require you to complete tomb challenges though, but they're fun and unique puzzles in themselves. There's also glyphs that offer glimpses into the lore of the game. There's codex pages which, though are compulsory, will extend your health bar, making combat easier. There's even a villa that can be upgraded and gives not only an easy way to earn florins, but offers discounts and adds to that sense of progression. And obviously there's the main story missions that are loosely based on historical events and persons, which have always been my favourite part of the franchise. And during some of these key story moments, there are vehicles that you get to use, which act as sort of story-based minigames that really keeps things fresh. There's just a lot here, and it actually feels meaningful. Thought it was also worth mentioning that this game is still ranked as one of the most popular Assassin's Creed games in the franchise, even today. I feel like AC2 is one of the best examples of the golden age of Ubisoft, with how the entire package was cohesive and engaging without being overly padded out to extend your playtime. For me, a game's length was never what made it good, it was how meaningful and engaging and entertaining it was. I mean, if you like the busy work type of game and want to complete everything, Assassin's Creed 2 can definitely hit that spot for you. But it's not an absolute requirement and you're not time or level gated. The whole point of optional side quests are that they are optional. The story. The storytelling, characters, and how it ties to actual historical events or real people have always been a highlight for me. Now, obviously the narrative created for the game is fictional, but for the most part, they've managed to include a lot of pivotal real-life events throughout the game that really adds to its authenticity. Like the bonfire of the Vanities, for example, or the Pazzi conspiracy were both important real-world events in history. And though there are obviously going to be changes or embellishments, I found the inclusion of them to be both fascinating and engaging.
Your day is done, Lorenzo!
And something that kept me engaged is how the story was told in the game. It isn't just told through character lines and cutscenes, but through the world. Like how the game explains the significance of each building or details character backgrounds are just nice little tidbits of info that you can choose to consume or ignore, but I really appreciated. The codex pages that you collect actually also have a lot of written info, and the glyphs that you find also further expands on the story. The characters were also a surprising highlight for me. Considering how long ago I originally played this game, I had forgotten about most of them, and I found each to have more depth and nuance than I remembered, especially considering most of them are barely in it. There's also the inclusion of real historical figures like Leonardo da Vinci, Machiavelli, and even the Pope, which ended up encouraging me to look outside of the game and read up on real-world history. And though the game doesn't go too in-depth into the characters' motivations or explore the political intrigue of the time, it does enough for my gamer brain to keep me engaged. Especially considering there are some pretty mature moments, but there's just enough humor or action included to mix things up and keep the story from getting stale. Out of all the characters, whether fictional or not though, my favourite has to be Uncle Mario.
Don't you recognize me? It's me, Mario!
Uncle Mario?
It's been too long, Nipote. Far too long.
Look, Assassin's Creed 2 is now 16 years old. 16! And maybe Assassin's Creed 2 isn't the greatest game ever made, but taking into account how old this game is, and how playable this whole package still is, and how some new games launch broken anyway, it's easy to see why this game still ranks as one of the top AC games in the franchise amongst fans of the series. To me, Assassin's Creed 2 fittingly harkens back to Ubisoft's literal renaissance. An era that feels like a lifetime ago. A golden age when the company was still at the top of their game, especially given the company's current public perception. I mean, it's obviously not perfect, but yes, I would definitely still say this game is worth playing today.
Salute, Claudia.
You here to look at the book?
If you've managed to sit through this whole video, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to let me know what else you'd like to see in the comments. Hopefully, I'll catch you in the next one.